All right, I think that works. I think we're fine, Gene. We're finally on.
All right.
So for the one or two people that are watching to the live broadcast that I do on YouTube, Twitch, or on Rumble, we have a special guest. This is Gene Sticco. I say that right? I'm
You
terrible.
did.
He's running. He's a 2024 presidential candidate, and he's taken some time to be on the podcast. Although I was late, I feel bad. Here's a guy running for president, and I'm like, hold on, bro, I gotta take a shower. I'll be right down. And the dude's running for president. So thank you so much for joining the podcast, for joining Spazzing Out America's podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, kid.
Where are you from? Are you a Mass guy? Where do you hail from, as they say?
Yeah, so I grew up in Somerville. My father, my family's originally from the North End, so he always says he moved when he had to move out to the country. So we went out to Somerville because at least they had trees. And so I grew up in Somerville. I went to Malden Catholic High School. I left at 18 to join the military. Did 9 years in the Air Force, and then my post-military career sort of took me around the world. Never in my life expected I'd be back, but after getting married in 2018 to a wonderful woman, your future first lady, Natalia,
Yes.
who is an immigrant here
Is she
from
legal now?
She is right now. Yeah, she's legal.
Because you guys got married, right?
Exactly.
Is that how that works? I don't even know how that works. Like, you can marry somebody and then they become a citizen, right?
No. It's actually, it's a more complex problem than that. And it's actually part of my motivation for running for president was, the frustration with the immigration system, but we can touch on that.
We will
in a bit, but long story short. So we wound up 2018 moving back to Massachusetts, and so now I'm in the lovely town of Malden.
Oh, that's so. I thank you for your service.
Thank you.
So, I mean, that's huge. When you say you're surprised you came back, do you mean like because you thought you were gonna die, or you're just surprised that you came back to the United States in general?
little bit of both. No, I mean, particularly coming back to back home, back to the Boston area. I mean, it was. I always had this idea that it was really kind of cost prohibitive to have left and then try and move back, which to some extent it is, to be honest with you. And it's so funny because I remember about 10 years ago, oh God, maybe even more now, maybe 12, 13 years ago, I was living in the Netherlands. And there was an article that, I came across talking about Winter Hill, Somerville, and, the gentrification and, these $1 million homes. And I'm like, what are they talking about? Winter Hill, Somerville,
Uh-huh.
And then,
where my dad grew up, right over there by Somerville Lumber.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
So it's down there.
Yeah, right down by McGrath Highway there.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, yeah, no, it was funny. And And really, I mean, I probably spent more of my adult life living outside of the United States. So I have my little spots that I'm fond of and where I thought I was going to retire to. And I technically retired in 2017. And I had planned to just sort of go to Malta and chill out. And
there's so much there. Wait, there's just so much there. I have to. We do need
to
unpack it. We need to get, there's a lot to unpack because we do need to get to, what is your platform? What are you running for? How are you running? Are you running as a write-in, or are you going to go and get certified in all 50 states? We got to get to all that.
Yep.
But hey, how old are you?
I just turned 50 in November.
All right. So you're retired. You've been retired. So you retired what?
Almost 5 years.
So you 45. So how do you retire at 45? Are you wealthy, or did you just decide I'm done?
Lot of good and poor decisions. I had some I had some health issues. I'm a disabled veteran as well, so I had some things from that. But my post-military career, I worked inside the oil and gas industry both working inside companies and as a government contractor. I had my own government contracting firm for a few years, where we did support of a lot of various agencies in the space of intelligence and geopolitical and transnational security risk management. Um, so it was a good career.
Okay. So can you help me get a government contract for my business?
Let me tell you.
I own a junk removal company, so I'm like, do they need junk removal?
Oh yeah.
Like, can I get in on this? I'm sure they probably. I bet you they probably pay. So it's $800 a truckload for my truck. I bet you
Yeah.
they probably pay like 2,000 a truckload. They
Well,
probably they
I
overpay.
mean, the thing about it, I wouldn't, those stories, the $500 hammers and $2,000 toilet seats. I think those are really more the anomalies and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But I mean, particularly for small businesses, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity available in government contracting. It's a process to go through. It's a little bit intimidating. It's a little bit bureaucratic, but it's actually not that difficult. You develop a GSA schedule, it's called, and next thing you know, you get calls from all the agencies in the area saying, "Oh, I saw your schedule. You're on here. Come get my stuff."
How much I am all right. You know what? Maybe I will text you this offline and see if how much it would cost for you to be if you were interested to be a consultant to get me on. I I've
Wow.
been trying to do government work forever because I'm like, it's you're always going to be busy. At least that's what people make it seem to be. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
want to hog up the time on talking about trying to get my company business, but I never really talked to anybody that's actually had a contract with the
Oh yeah.
government.
Look,
So,
I'm the general director of an opera company now. And even being an opera company, I'm still registered in the government. I registered the company in the government system for grants, and never knowing when an embassy might want a concert or something. So I'm ready.
oh, well, we definitely, if you don't mind, do you mind if I reach you out to you
Yeah, no,
professionally
no,
after we
not
do
at
the
all.
podcast?
I
Wait
let
a minute.
anybody buy me a beer.
So now you just talk. Now you just said opera. What opera house are you running? Is it in Boston or is it uh, like opera? Dude's got a military, government contracts, security, and now he's doing opera.
Right. My wife tells me to take out the trash. I'm like, look, I'm running an opera company. I'm running for president of the United States. I don't have time for foolishness like taking out the trash.
So opera. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Opera. What you know? What is opera musicals like plays? I don't know anything about opera. Or is it like Buccellini? Is that the guy's name? Bocelli,
Bocelli. Okay.
the
Oh,
blind guy.
boy, you just made my night because you just set up my straight line for my favorite thing. So Andrea Pagelli, he's a magnificent tenor, right? And you've heard him, you
Mhm.
know who he is. And people always say, he's an opera singer and this and that. So Andrea Bocelli is to opera what Olive Garden is to Italian cuisine,
Ah,
right? He's
gotcha.
good. You'll enjoy it. It's a
Uh-huh.
good time, not the same thing.
So it's not opera.
Right,
It's
exactly.
okay. What then what's opera? Is it the fat lady?
So you can say that, and I'll blow your mind with all of the
It's not over
contradictions
till
on
the
that.
fat lady
So
sings?
so the short answer is this. I'm going to give you our company is called Mystic Side Opera Company, and we're actually just starting it up here in Malden. So over the last 4 years of my 5 years of retirement, that's been my primary project is sort of redefining what the future of the opera industry will look like. And Mystic Side Opera is the culmination of that vision, going forward. And you can find that at discovertheopera.com. And
Okay.
if that's too hard to remember, then I have an alternate domain that leads you to the same site because what I'm telling people is you don't have to go to New York City for a world class opera experience. We've got that talent we're bringing to Malden, so you can forget the Met, and the domain is www.fthemet.com.
I love it. F the man. You shouldn't be. Yeah, you won't forget that. So that's pretty cool. I'm into. You know what? I don't want to lie. I'm really not into musicals, but
Yeah,
Hamilton, and I know that's not opera.
it's good.
It is probably And probably because I'm America first. Rah, I love America.
Yeah.
I absolutely I know I could probably, I mean, I couldn't do it right now, but if we played it, I could probably word for word all 3 hours of it. My son
Yeah.
and I listen to it over and over and over and over. I love it.
Yeah,
Talk
and
about
I've always, I mean, I've been an opera fan since I was a teenager. Always loved Broadway musicals. I love the Frank Sinatras, the Tony Bennett's, all the
Yep,
standards. Our parents, our grandparents' music. I still love some modern stuff and all the rest of it. My wife's an opera singer, so that's obviously part of was the motivation of actually
great.
getting into the business side of it.
That's good. I'm going to see again, it's not opera, but I'm going to see Beetlejuice
Yeah,
in May.
far
So
from opera.
yeah, I
And
know it's
Phantom of the Opera isn't really opera either.
see people who aren't
Who
in
knew?
you know what it is. So like I like to drink wine, but
Yep.
then when there's someone that really likes to drink wine, they're like, that's not wine. So when I'm like, oh, to me, I'm like, musical is the same as opera. You're like, no, 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 bud, that ain't even close. Like
Yeah,
when I'm banging back a Riesling and the guy's like, Riesling, bro, like get out of here. What's your problem? Same thing with
exactly.
Scotch or whiskey. Like I love whiskey, but I don't
Yep.
know anything about it. I just know I
Yep.
like to drink it. You
But I
know what I
mean,
mean?
that's
And then
and that's sort of what we do, with the opera company. We're not here to, I'm not here to appeal to the industry. You are my ideal client. Somebody that's like, you know what, I never really listened to it. Maybe I'd like it. Maybe if I understood a little bit. So we just trying to make it accessible and make it interesting, and make it a fun experience that you come in, and then when you're having your whiskey and your glass, and you're going to learn it, I'm going to teach you 4 or 5 things, right? That you can sit back, have your glass of wine, have your whiskey in hand, throw on an aria, and you'll be like, "Oh, do you know what he's singing about here? Oh, this is from Nabucco," and 4 or 5 fun facts you can throw out that make you sound like you know what you're talking about.
so are you running shows right now? Can people, when's the next show? Can people buy tickets to go to that? We haven't even talked about you running for president. I'm sorry.
Right.
Do you
Well,
have
yeah.
tickets
So we're getting
available?
we're getting ready to program. We're getting ready to move into our permanent space. The season is lined up. Not ready to announce it yet. But like I said, anyone that goes to
I love it.
fthemet.com or discovertheopera.com, sign up. There's a calendar on there that sort of has all the big dates right now. We've got some guest artists that are going to be coming in, and doing shows, and it's just going to be a really great community events,
What about the
fun
dress?
date night out, things like that.
To
Just
wear a
something different to do that's really engaging.
Do I have to wear a bow tie and have a monocle and a
If you
top
want
hat?
to, you can. You don't have to. It's
Is
not required, but I
it
strongly encourage it just for the fun of it.
is it what is the typical, for your place? I'm being serious. Is it a jeans and t-shirt type of place, or do most people come in, they have, they're dressed up?
Yeah. So we again so for me, right? I host the event. I'm in the white tie tux, and tails,
Sure.
right? Because I want to set the ambiance a little bit. But it's a no judgment zone. How just come. I'm just happy you're there. I don't give a
Yep.
shit what you're wearing.
Okay. I get it. All right. All right. All right. There are other things I want to talk about too with you, but why don't we get but why are you running for president of the United States? Yeah, you know what? Better. Why are you running, and why aren't you starting out at a lower level? So why aren't you running for Congress? Or why are you just going for? Or maybe that's your plan. Maybe your plan is get your name recognition, and then you'll run for Congress down the road.
So here's my strategy. I have no interest in being a politician. So to go on a path of saying, okay, well, I need to run for city council. I have no interest in being a career politician. And I think 99.8% of our problem in this country is that we have nothing but career politicians. And that every decision that is made all the way along that line, decisions are made about how do I win my next election, and there is little focus on what's best for the American people or what's best for my constituents at whatever level you're operating at. I think when you get down to the local levels, you get people who are much more community focused and service focused and all the rest of it. So, why jump in for president? I say because I think I'm the right person for the moment and the right person for the times. I go back to my career a little bit. where, as I mentioned, a lot of geopolitical, transnational security interests. Um, and I'll use this as an example to sort of summarize the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Okay.
In 2004, I could tell you that Putin had desires to invade Ukraine. In 2012, I could have told you in the next 2 years, he is going to invade Ukraine and annex off part of it. In 2014, or I'm sorry, in 2017, I was telling people, I was writing papers about how the next Democratic president of the United States will undoubtedly have to deal with Russia's full scale invasion of Ukraine.
Okay. Well,
And
you know,
then
can
it
I?
happens. And
So,
then the build up starts.
mhm,
And from our president, we see, well, we're sending messages. We don't know what he's doing. We don't know what his intents are. Then he invades, and everybody's surprised. So that tells me one of two things is happening. Either number one, it's part of the political theater that we all recognize happens, that we all say that we hate, yet we all still demand and we all still accept.
okay.
That's choice number one. Choice number two is he honestly thinks it's a surprise after being in government for 40 years and having access to much better information than I do. And it was honestly a surprise, in which case we are in much more trouble as a nation than we could ever imagine if the invasion of Ukraine by Russia was legitimately a surprise. And if it wasn't, then we're being spoken to like we're idiots and we're being pacified and we're just having games played.
Okay.
And that was probably the final straw, so to speak, of my motivation, where I said, you know what, we need to reset government a bit. We need somebody in there whose sole focus is not a political agenda, but in leading government in a way that is authentically serving the American people.
Okay.
And
Now,
I'm that guy.
quick question on the Ukraine, right?
Yep.
So when you say you could see it coming, at that time you're in the military, right? In
No,
2004 or no?
no, by that time I was already out about 5 years.
So
So I
you're
was working.
watching, George Bush, and you're hearing things like, "Hey, man, Bush doesn't have this guy reined in," like
Well, I
stuff
was
like that.
living in so at that time, so post-military, like I said, I had lived in Lithuania for about 3 years. So the former Soviet Union in Eastern Europe was sort of my wheelhouse, my area of expertise. So I was very much into, the politics, the geopolitics of the region, at that time.
So why not? And the other thing you mentioned is that he was waiting for a Democratic president. Why not? Why not do it when Trump was president?
Because so Trump threw a wrench in the works of the world, essentially. One of the main things that you got to remember about presidents, and the way the intelligence world looks at them and the way that other presidents and their counterparts look at them, there are entire teams of people who study, um, these politicians. So, somewhere sitting there in Langley in the CIA, there is an entire office of people who are dedicated nothing but to understanding Vladimir Putin, right?
Okay, true.
And they understand him and his behaviors to the point they could probably tell you what he is going to eat for breakfast on which day of the week before he even thinks that he has made that decision.
Okay.
They'll be able to tell you because they've studied him. So,
Well, I mean, that's good to know. I feel like
right.
that's
So,
comforting that we're looking into people like that.
yeah, and so, and so that's, somewhat of what I, did to a certain degree.
Okay.
Certainly not that much in depth. So what happened with Trump was Trump came in and nobody knew what he was going to do. He didn't have a record. He didn't have positions, on issues and whatnot. Um, so they would look at the advisors around him, and you looked at guys like Steve Brennan and, You looked at who he actually had, on the full National Security Council. And so that probably sent a message that he would be more willing to fight. In general, a Republican president is more willing
Okay.
to go to war than a Democratic president would be. Then you have to take into account a bunch of the elections and positionings in Europe at the time, in the neighboring countries. You have to take into consideration politics of the European Union at the time in order to kind of grasp that full picture and make a somewhat accurate analysis.
Okay. Now, let's say you're able to rattle the tree here, and let's say you get elected. What when you say get the government back for the people, are you looking back to? I mean, I hate to say this, but people say it all the time. Are you looking at the founding fathers and trying to get to what they originally wanted, or you know what? We need to listen to Jefferson, and we need to blow this thing up. Should have been blown up every 20 years, and we redo it for the generation.
Yeah, I don't think so much from that perspective. I think in terms of, um, I talk about my first 100 days in office, right? What's your plan for those first 100 days?
Okay.
So my first 100 days are about having all of the institutions, all of our administration review what we're doing. What are the policies? What are the processes? How do they serve the American people? And if we can't easily define, and if we can't easily articulate and communicate how a program, how an office, how an agency is serving the American people, then we really need to look at, do we actually need that? You know, they talk about 87,000 IRS agents. Do we need 87? No. You know what I think we need? I think we need 87,000 advocates in government who can help American citizens navigate the various agencies. That's what I think we actually need.
You're
And that's
absolutely
what I think is
right.
actually being of service to America, not more oversight and control and nitpicking, and you got to figure it out on your own. Going through the immigration process, a discussion I had with our mutual friend Jeff Turco there from Revere,
Good guy, state rep.
and he said just get a lawyer, just get, because I was having these issues, and I said, you know what, I should not have to be coerced or bullied or frustrated into paying a lawyer to get an answer from my government. I should not, the system should not be such that you need a lawyer or a lobbyist or a nonprofit agency to help you navigate it. The federal government should not have processes and policies and programs that are so difficult they begin creating cottage industries for people to use them. That's why I say we need to focus on, how do Americans access what we're paying for, in government.
Okay. Now let's it makes great sense because I agree with this. So I don't want to disagree. I agree with everything you're saying. I mean, I literally just tried to appeal to a zoning board and was like, why is it costing me $600 to appeal this? I'm like, this basically puts it out of reach for anybody that would like to appeal a problem that's happened in their neighborhood. You're charging me $600. This is nuts. So on a federal level, I understand what you're saying, and I like your idea of having advocates. I think we should have people that do that, paid by the government, to assist us in getting our voice heard. But when you say this stuff, I don't have the right word, right? But
Mhm.
people, like, for example, when I bitched about that, someone called me a kook. I'm not calling you a kook, but this is what establishment people will say. They'll say, "Well, why this guy Gene's he's nuts. He's a kook." Why are they trying to hold on to something that doesn't work when you literally in just about a minute and a half just basically said, "Hey, this is real simple to make our government work," and you laid it out. So why isn't it like that?
Well, because it
What's the
works for
issue?
them.
How so? Like, because they
It
can make millions of
because they
dollars
keep
off of
that's
it?
that's how they keep their job, right? I'll give you a great example. I had, again, on my immigration, somebody suggested I reach out to a congressperson's office, which I did. And I got in touch with their expert on immigration. And in the discussion with her, I realized she wasn't an expert in immigration, number one. And within federal agencies, there's an office called the ombudsman, which is supposed to be the people's advocate within that agency to help you, resolve issues and all the rest of it. And so in speaking with her, I said, well, I have filed something with the ombudsman's office and I'm waiting on that reply. Unfortunately, the reply I got back was no clearer than the initial inquiry, than the confusion of the initial response. But essentially it said, no, we agree. There, and they sort of answered a question that I didn't even ask,
Yep.
and I'm like, why? And again, I fancy myself, I'm eloquent enough to get an idea across in writing. I might not be the greatest speaker in the world, but I can get a point across, specifically when I'm asking a very specific question,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not getting a specific answer to that question. So in talking with this congressperson's representative, her reply was, well, there's nothing that I can do. I can't do anything different than you can. Right. Fair enough. That's, you know what?
My head would have exploded if she said that to me.
Well, superficially, I think that's great. So if in reality, if the agencies are such that even a representative from a congressional office is not able to influence that agency or get it good, controls, checks and balances, I'm all for it. But what that also says to me, or it raises the question to me, then what do we need you for?
Yeah, that's a
If
great point. What's the
you
point?
can't do anything more than what I can do on my own, then what's your job?
Right. You
Your
wouldn't
job is
have
just
them
to
working at
tell
the
me to
opera house.
go do it?
They'd be fired. If they were working at your opera house, you'd say, "What do you do here?" Nothing. You're fired.
Right. What do you do? I tell people that sounds a lot like a web page to me.
Yeah. What do you do? Nothing. You're fired.
Right. I refer people to what office to go to solve their problem. That's a web page. That's a
Yeah.
web link.
You're fired. See you later.
Exactly. So when you ask why doesn't any of this change, it's because there is an entire generation pipeline set up whose of people whose livelihoods and futures and dreams and aspirations and visions for themselves and their family and their legacy all depend upon the system not changing.
That makes perfect sense. My God. Wait, there's even if let's just say you got elected, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theory guy. I'll just use Trump,
Right.
right? I have no idea whether or not the election was stolen or not. I'm not one of those people that gets into that. I'm just like, hey, the Democrats did a damn good job of getting ballots. They hopped right on mail-in balloting while the Republicans bitched about it and said, "Oh, we're gonna go to court." And I was like, "No, don't go to court. Learn how to get to people's houses and make sure they fill out the
Right.
ballot." So that's how I think we lost. But there are people that believe they wanted Trump out. So let's say you get momentum, like serious momentum, right? And let's typically a third party candidate gets maybe 1%, 2%, 3%, right?
Right.
Something like that. But let's just say you're killing it and you're really getting heard. What's to keep them from snuffing you out? I'm being serious. I know I'm not trying to, I'm just saying they look at you and go, you're not taking my family's dynasty of where my kid's a senator, my kid's gonna be a senator, and all their buddies are gonna work in my office. You're gone.
Yeah. Well, and my response to that is, again, I spent 9 years in the Air Force security forces in my post-military career. In a lot of those agencies, those three-letter agencies that I contracted with, I've been chased around Eastern Europe by the Russian mafia. I was a bodyguard in the military for a general. My response for that is, You can try, you might be successful, but you better pack a big fucking lunch because it's going to be a long day the day you do try.
It's unnerving to think that that we could even have that conversation to where your hope is to change the government to work better for the people. And the legit conversation is if you do that, you put a ton of people out of work and you ruin a ton of people's legacies, which
Yeah,
is basically it's like being a noble. Like if you're a Kennedy, you're almost assured that you're going to be in government. If
right,
you're a Bush, you're in government. You're gonna get a job somewhere, whether you're
right.
an ambassador. It doesn't. You're getting a gig.
Yeah.
You know.
I
So
get a little recognition. Next thing you know, I'm Clinton.
but I'm just saying, because
Right.
when you start
I'm
messing with
suicided.
people, you mess with their money.
Right.
That's the issue, right? When you start messing with people's money, that's when people get upset. You
Yeah,
know?
that's it. I mean, so I think, to an extent though, what I would hope is that should that momentum or when that momentum
Right.
happens,
Sure.
that it begins to change the conversations. That I think Trump and the Trump presidency, particularly the Democratic Party, but politics in general, missed a tremendous opportunity to do exactly what I'm talking about. They missed a tremendous opportunity to refocus and reimagine what politics should be or needs to be in America. I don't subscribe to the characterizations of racism or nationalists or fascists. That's who elected. I think the bigger message with the Trump presidency was a signal for change. Was an expression of frustration. Was a vote against the political elite and the status quo. And instead of the Democrats particularly would have done themselves a much better service by stepping back and saying, you know what, we hear you, America. We hear this frustration. Um, we hear. I like to characterize a little bit of what we're experiencing over the last 6-7 years now as this cultural fission between baby boomers, for whom the world is moving too fast, and your Gen Z and millennials who just expect instant change and instant gratification. And
Mhm.
we all know the unintended consequences of just, oh, that's what you want. Okay, well, let's change it.
Yeah.
And what the opportunity that was missed was somebody to come forward and say that, to recognize that, to acknowledge it, and to say, look, we need to the country always needs to progress. We can always do better in everything, in every area, in all of our social and world relationships. um there's always room to do better. There's always room to grow. There is always room for more freedom. There's always room for more expression. um and but also explaining it doesn't happen overnight.
No. All right.
We need to be thoughtful. We need to be intentional. So we can move forward quickly. Let's move forward with intention. Let's move forward with purpose. Let's make sure we're being transparent about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And let's make sure we're communicating why it's good for the country, and not just jamming an ideology down everybody's throats on whatever side you're on.
Gotcha. All right. So some of the bigger topics, where do you stand on the border? I'm talking about the southern border, not not Canada's. But I mean, I guess it would be the same issue if they were coming in.
It's the same.
Same thing.
Look, when it comes, I'm a firm believer. We have law. We are a nation of laws. We have laws on the books. Those laws need to be enforced. Period. Um, We are in a situation though that it's happened. Okay, we have a massive undocumented immigrant illegal alien problem running around the United States right now, that we need to get our arms around. So I don't think the answer is round them all up and throw them out either. I think that's inhumane. I think that's counter to a lot of our values as Americans. I think within that group, you're dealing with, fundamentally two specific groups. You're dealing with people who are authentically here to find a better life for themselves, or and their families, to join families and all the rest of it. And we need to create a path for them to do that, and to be part of, the fabric of American society. We we need to do that as Americans,
What?
because they're here.
Okay.
We got to deal with it.
So
Then
what are
there's
your
the other side of
yeah,
people
okay.
that do need to be rounded up and deported, and we need to empty our prisons and go put them back in a prison in their home country and make sure they don't come back again.
So what about here? What I've been saying this. I would like to have a more secure border
Right.
somehow, some way, right? But I agree with you. There are people here that are never going back. So what of, you know what? You're here. We got here amnesty. Everybody, here you go. Here's a social security card. Let's get you all working. The ones that can work. Get rid of
Yep.
the bad people, and then go to having a stronger border to make sure that we don't have tens of millions of people coming across. Or do we just leave it open? I mean, I don't want it open,
Yeah,
but I'm
no, no, no.
curious
Yeah,
where
yeah.
you're at.
Look, that's the basic fundamental of sovereignty. Is your ability to control your border. To me, without that, then you cannot declare yourself sovereign. You cannot claim yourself, as a sovereign nation, if you are unable to control the borders, of your nation. What does that look like? Right. There's walls, there's technology, there's physical presence, there's layers, layers of security that go into that. Um, so yeah, I think both from a physical perspective, uh, and a policy procedural perspective, it needs to be tightened down. Do we need new laws? I don't think we need new laws. I think we need to enforce what we have. We need to review. We need to make sure it's reasonable, it's realistic, it makes sense. Um, everybody understands and plays by the rules. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's like I said,
So do you think wave the magic wand and make everybody here, give them amnesty and they're citizens? Or do you say, hey, you guys all have to, you're here, but you all have to, go through the process that everybody else had to go through to become a citizen? Or are we just, boom, you're citizens and let's move on?
Yeah, no, right. I don't think it's a wave a magic wand and all of a sudden you're a citizen. I think it's a process of ensuring that, in the same way, you're a you become a permanent resident. We have a process for due diligence. Um, we can. I know some of the problem with immigrants from any number of nations is the availability or legitimacy of records back in their home nations. So we need to do our best to establish that, at least since you've been here, you have been a good, productive member of society. Um, you're a good person. You have good intentions, and we need to make that valid. And then again, let Congress decide what's the time frame to from that moment to when you are able to apply to become a citizen, and what does that look like.
Mhm.
So got to give them a path, but we also have to make sure, to a degree, we've done our due diligence.
Okay. What now? What about energy? What about gas? Are we making the move to electricity, electric cars, or let's dig, let's drill, baby drill, or let's get oil from wherever the hell we can get it from whatever country, and stay with diesel and stay with
Yeah.
gas.
So I'm a big green energy advocate. All for it. But it's not a 12-year plan. Understanding, like I said, I worked inside the oil and gas industry as well. They look in terms of 50-year plans. So I think there is certainly a path to cleaner energy. There is a path to, the electric cars and all of these ideas, renewable energies. The approach is a bottom up approach. It doesn't start at the federal government and come downwards. Where it begins are in local communities or groups of communities that build microgrids that incorporate renewable resources, your wind, biothermal, solar, and power their own communities and power their own critical infrastructure within that community. And then the excess sort of goes into a grid, right? And if you got 5
Mhm.
communities doing that, that excess all trickles up. And then at that federal level is where we start thinking about the long-term plan for how do we, where are the charging stations for cars? Where are we generating energy from? So the short-term issue when it comes to things like drilling is we need to drill. We need to reduce our dependence on foreign oil, and we need to go back to being energy independent, if not an exporter of energy, particularly when it comes to petrochemicals and carbon-based fuels and all the rest of it. You can't just flip a switch, but what you can do is develop a plan, a 20, 25, up through really a 50-year plan that you're going to need to transition the country off of fossil fuels into stable renewable energy resources. You need to make those early investments that improves the technology. I mean, again, anyone will tell you a lithium battery is not any more environmentally friendly than anything else, than drilling for oil. We need to look at the politics of that. A lot of people don't realize, China has been buying up lithium mines all over the world. I think they own the biggest one in Mexico right now. So we have to make some political calculations as well when we say we're going to transition. How are we going to do it?
So
Where are we going to put it? What makes sense in 5-10 year increments, all the way to we're an advanced, green energy solution. But this idea that, the idea that just by mandating it's going to happen, it's a fallacy, and it's irresponsible in every sense of the word.
real quick, you just brought up China. Should we allow China to be buying land in the United States? Buying up our farmlands, and let's say they
No,
bought a lithium mine in China. Should we not? Should that be allowed?
no, absolutely not. I
Well,
mean, in this, and to me, if we sort of start getting into national security issues and all the rest of it, we need to have a serious look at the influence of foreign governments across the board in the institutions of the United States, and even within they're an influence in major corporations in the United States. We're not all playing by the same rule book, and we need to start pretending that we are. And we need to start pretending that China, that Russia, that North Korea, that Iran, that we need to stop pretending they are in any way interested or motivated to act as a good global citizen in partnership with the United States. And
yeah.
we need to call it what it is, and we need to root it out.
So I agree. Now, you brought up national security. What's your national security plan? Where are you on this?
Well, it goes down to defense. strong military. It comes down to anticipating the actions of nations that may be against us. And it needs, and in the intelligence world needs to have a very comprehensive look, like I said, across all of the entire spectrum of influence of foreign nations in the affairs of the United States, at home and abroad. One of the major national security sort of policy issues that would be different for me is that I would include healthcare as part of national security. And I say that because everything is dependent upon the health of the nation, from our children's education and future, through our ability to have qualified, competent, healthy people in the military, to the general population's health against things like COVID, against weaponization of viruses, or whatever else might come our way. So I would reframe discussions about healthcare within that national security umbrella to say, we need to be looking at investments, particularly for children and teens. I think once you enter the workforce, then we look at private options. We make account for unique situations, peoples with disabilities, and all the rest of it. But really, a sort of cradle to grave approach, because if we do not have a healthy nation, we are not, our economy doesn't work, our military doesn't work, our ability to, influence what happens in the global environment does not work if Americans aren't healthy.
Yeah, no, we're not healthy. That's
We're
for
not.
sure.
As
We're,
I sit and have
we're,
as I sit and have my
we're
Coca-Cola, nothing
overweight.
against Coca-Cola.
All right, last one. Guns. I mean,
Love them.
specifically AR-15s. So I talk about guns in general and about the Second Amendment, but
Right.
the assault rifles. I know it doesn't stand for assault rifle, but
Right.
talk about that.
You're right. I mean, this is a people problem. The gun issue is a people problem. The gun issue is a mental health problem, right? Again, national security. Healthcare is physical and mental. You are not going to deregulate people's feelings and emotions, people's propensities for violence, um, and all the rest of it. The people that act with weapons, uh, the problem isn't that they just were able to get a hold of a gun. I mean, that's the last part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's the end. The problem began long before they ever put their hands on it. So the whole idea that, because the gun exists, because it's now, it's not saying you just leave them out, right? We need to have, you got to be responsible. You got to have it locked up. All again, we've got the laws for it. We've got the fundamental controls about it, but focusing on the method by which somebody committed an evil act
Mm-hmm.
doesn't solve anything.
Right.
I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
They say, the forefathers could never have envisioned, a weapon of such magnitude that could, kill, 30 people, in one shot. But again, the founding fathers, their intention was that the people were armed, to keep the government under control. And it's part of our national defense. I believe it's one of the main reasons a land invasion of the United States. China could put a billion of themselves on 25 2,500 aircraft carriers and try marching from Chicago, or try marching from California to Boston. I don't think they're going to get too far past Idaho or Utah, or You know, I'm sure they'll go right through California, no problem.
Well, actually, I interviewed a gun expert a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
and he said that there is from when World War I'm saying it wrong, WW2 happened. The reason that Japan didn't attack the mainland is because they were nervous that every farmer in America would have a gun. That's
Right.
I mean, I don't know if that's fact or no. I mean, yes, I think every farmer has a gun. I don't know if it's legit that that's why they didn't come to the mainland, but he
Right.
said he all right, honey, sorry, my wife. Um he said that yeah, man, I'm in trouble. He said maybe I need one. No, I'm kidding. Jesus. What he said was that so many people in the United States have a gun, it's the biggest armed force in the world.
Right.
So
And you know what? And I mean, and if you look for all the, all the horrible, tragedies that happen, I mean, you look at a situation like Hurricane Katrina in 2005, right? In New Orleans. It was the fact that people in communities were armed and they came together and they safeguarded their own community until law and order could be established, until lawful authority could come back. These people said, we're going to set up our own patrols, we're going to monitor our own community. And I think that is an invaluable um, tool to have as a people. And I think that speaks more to the character of gun owners in
mhm,
America than the bad incidents. I think, the fact that, and look, any number of those communities could have said, you know what, we're our own independent nation now.
yep.
And they probably, could have had a good, but that was never anybody's intent. Their intent was, we are going to prevent the bad people from coming in here.
Mhm.
And once lawful authority is able to, provide the service again, we are happy to put them away and step back and get back to day-to-day life. And I think, I mean, that's America.
That is America, baby. Woo!
America.
So, all right, how do people get in touch with you? How do they get involved?
Sure. So you can go to the website. It's either genesticko.com or forthepromiseofamerica.com. I have outlined a lot of basic policies, a lot of basic positions on there. Hopefully, I'll be looking to build that out and get into more detail. There's a way to email through there. There's a way to donate to the campaign through there. So as
Mhm.
soon as I reach $5,000 in donations, then I have to register with the Federal Elections Committee,
Yep.
which that in and of itself will be a great news story. Some guys, who was this guy? It's gonna at least get my name on the list, and whoever is running from whatever party will see that list, and who
Who's
the
this
hell is
dude?
this guy?
Opera. What?
Right. So that's so they can find it there for thepromiseofamerica.com, genesticko.com, and for anyone that's interested in discovering the opera, fthemet.com.
All right. Well, Gene Sticco, guys, he's running for president of the United States in 2024. Hey, man, thank you for coming on.
Hey, thanks
I
for
am
having
going
me.
to hit you
Appreciate
up
it.
after later. So I'll upload. We're still live. I'm going to put this thing online, and
Yep.
I'll send you the link so you have it. I got to as you heard, my wife needs me to go, so something must be going on upstairs.
All right. Sounds good. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, sir, and
Yes,
best of
sir.
luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.